Hello, hello, and welcome back to Let the Rest Burn. I'm Coco Nelson, and I am here with Laura Patricia Martin. She is a trauma-informed relationship specialist and founder of Healing to Happy. She is amazing. I've been watching her content recently and literally eating it up. I cannot. I love the way you show up online, and I cannot wait to have her here on the podcast for you all so you can hear her amazingness yourself. Welcome, Laura. Thank you for being on.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to actually sit down and see you.
Right? I know. We've been contacting each other kind of back and forth with the stories and messages. She's a brilliant marketer. I'm watching you do these things. I'm like, yes, that's how you package a course. Nicely done. Right? I'm just geeking out on her capacity to show the world who she is and what you have to offer. Laura, I would just love to hear a little bit about who you are, who you serve. Give us your sweet little fun elevator pitch. Tell us who you are.
It's always so much pressure. It's like, how do I compile who I am in 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. It's like I like prosecco and oysters, and I have the best relationship and all these things. But
It's so true.
it's the same way the conversation we were just having earlier. It's like I'm so much more than what my title is.
Yes.
And it's
yes.
and I really want people to know the human behind that. Yes, there's this wisdom, and yes, there was a journey of getting here, of overcoming domestic violence and eating disorder and chronic illness and sexual assault and all this stuff that now my brain is like, wee. And it's just that, people that want to overcome their journey, not even now for me, it gets to the point that it's a part, obviously. It's like a little badge on my sweater, but it's not the full picture of who I am. And I help people evolve to getting there. So moving from this survivor complex into this full human that no longer is attached to this past story of themselves.
The complexity of the whole human and not being attached to this past version, I think, is something we're definitely going to get into today, because I ask the question often on this podcast about what you had to burn to get to where you are. But I also think it's, how do you actually let go and fully move into this new identity and allow the complexity of this to develop without feeling like you have to keep burning. And I do firmly believe in change and evolution of self, but it doesn't have to be as hard as it was in the past, right? We don't have to, life doesn't have to be hard all the time. It is hard, but it doesn't have to be hard all the time. So when you have a story, I know you have a story, right? But when you think about, I'm going to say recently, we'll talk recent and then we'll go past. When you think recently, in the last 6 months, what have you had to burn or let go of in order to be who you are today, sitting here talking to me?
So in the last 6 months, I've deepened into my partnership with my man. And in that, I've had to be vulnerable in different ways, because the thing about a healthy love is they'll see straight through all your shit. There is no, and as a CEO, you have all this, you have an identity online, right? This perfect thing, vision, this whatever. And I have carried that with me in all of my relationships, because I was like, how can I outrun my past? Oh, let's be a perfect little human being. And that never fucking works. And so the partnership, I've entered into it, and it was I said, I love you first, and he didn't say it back. And most people would get up. Now he has, obviously he's in love with me, duh. But it opened up this arena of what does love mean to you? And then we were in this conversation. He's like, babe, it's not that I'm not falling in love with you. He's like, but there's a part of you you're not letting me in on, and I don't even know the right questions to ask. And when someone that you love so much says something like that to you, it is I'm like, you're not wrong. I just don't know what the fuck it is. I have no idea what that is. Let me go find out. As opposed to being the old teenage self, that archetype being you don't know, da 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 da, all this stuff. And I'm like, and I did kind of at first. I was like, I mean, babe, what do you need to know? I'm like, I have a history, I have big T trauma in my, and listed off the things that have happened. And he's like, it's not what happened to you. It's what is going on with you because of that. There's some part of me that, or some part of you that you haven't opened up to that. And so I've had to really sit with that. And it's been this not new version of self, just like this expanded, softer version of myself. And he makes the joke where he's like, yeah, when I first met you, it was like, you're so refined. And I was like, then what the heck do you describe me as now? He's like, he's like, I mean, like, you're just the softest human that I could ever imagine. Like, you just, it's not what I would expect. And I was like, you mean I'm still refined, right? Like, what do you mean?
I
It's
do
just like,
want the refinement.
exactly. But like to know that it's like I get to be soft with my man, and like I get to be CEO of
Yes.
other departments, and I get to be strong in this arena, and I know that I have my own back. But like in partnership, it's this different form of, and like true partnership that I think we're lacking right nowadays, like deep intimacy. It's like, how can I actually be open to you to fully hold my heart and know that I hold it too, but like to actually let you in, which is this new form that I've just had to completely bust wide open and burn to the ground, and just like trust, like full trust.
Mm. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you some questions about this, and then we'll get into some of your past too. But
Yeah.
how did you know that if you opened up this part of yourself, he was going to be somebody that could hold all of you?
See, that's still something, right? It's,
Mm-hmm.
you're never
Mm-hmm.
gonna know. You're never gonna
I
know.
know.
And it's this part where
I know.
I've had to build up this trust with self. And I have this because I
Yes.
went through a knees on the floor breakup a year ago.
Mm.
And realizing through that, this new version of myself came, my favorite chapter of my life came. And I was like, if I, you would think the survivor moments would be because of like domestic violence and all that kind of stuff, but it was that moment of like, oh, like I got me, because I like, he
Mm.
was just a value add, he is not the value. I'm the value.
Yes.
I'm the foundation. My love that
Yes.
I have for myself. And yes, of course, sometimes I do have to borrow the way I see him. You know this as a therapist. You have to, sometimes if you don't have your childhood, you have to borrow the way and mirror back different kind of love and things like that. And I do borrow that from him sometimes, but at the core, he's not the root of why I love myself. So I
Mm.
can open myself up, and I've had to rewire that and relearn that I don't have to earn the love, that I already have the love, that he's just an added bonus. And even if he were to, something can happen. It doesn't even have to be like, something can just happen, and I will still be okay. Will my heart hurt? Yes, but do I know that I can survive? Yeah, I've
Mm.
survived every fucking hard thing that's ever happened. And so just
Yeah.
building that continuous trust again and again and again, that takes time, especially with like deep trauma wounds and codependency and trauma bonds and things like that, that like that little version of yourself will kind of play into it. But like capital S, like internal family systems, capital S self is there to be like, baby girl, we got this. We are no
Yes.
longer a teenager and struggling and doing these things. Like, we're okay. And like continually kind of revisiting those parts, so that a big thing with like our relationship is like, I don't want it to be my therapist. I don't want him to be that. It's
Mm-hmm.
like really revisit that stuff outside of the context of our union, so that he does
Mm-hmm.
get that version of me trying to trust him. And like literally last night, like last night we literally had like a little tiff, because it was like, he's like, you are telling me you don't trust me and I haven't done anything. Like, it goes in those ways because we're still fucking
Yes.
human, but like
We
there's
are
still
so
this,
human.
we're so human, even though this is our field. Like, I am still human. I
Yeah.
still get insecure. I still get jealous. I still have to borrow his strength sometimes. And it's fucking okay. But
Yes.
at the core of it, it's like, do I really trust him? Yes. But really, how I trust him because I trust me. That's it.
Mm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really profound statement. And that's why I asked that question, because I get this so often. Well, I just haven't found the right guy, or, I've been burned so many times, or so many relationships have failed, and I just want to protect myself. So as soon as I know that they are safe and okay, as soon as I know that they're trustworthy, then I will soften. And there's a layer of that that's okay. There's a piece. I want you to have boundaries, everybody, right? Like, yes, like, let's be discerning in the beginning stages of filtering people in and out of access to you, right? But when you get to a place where you're like, I'm in love with this person, or I love this person, you're already in the game, right? You're already there. So if this is where you're at and it's toxic or unhealthy or abusive, then this is where you get help, right? This is where you call in the support teams. Nobody can get out of those things alone. But if you are in this situation and you're in love and you know your relationship is healthy and it scares the shit out of you because it's actually healthy, I'm so excited for that moment. I want to be scared shitless by the health of my love relationship. Please,
Literally.
universe, bring it. I am magnetizing that, please. I will jump for joy with the boredom that I feel, right? But 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 I think like those are the moments where it's like, okay, this is where my relationship with self gets tested. This is not where my relationship with him gets tested. I mean, yes, it does, but it really is about the relationship I have with myself. And as a woman, the ability to surrender and soften and to finally take a big, deep breath. We've been holding our breath since we were like 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And to have that surrender and that peace, I think all of us are looking for it. Men as well, but speaking specifically to women, there's just this like I can see it as this tightness of just holding it all together, waiting for that release. And it
Mm.
sounds to me like you are blossoming into that space, which is really beautiful. Please show us the way.
Yeah, I mean it is scary. Like that's the thing is like
Yeah.
and this is
Yeah.
why I really emphasize, and I know we spoke about this before the call, where it's like doing the work before this, like in relationship.
Mhm.
But the truth is, you're doing the work again in no matter how
Mhm.
much work you do in your singleness, you're revisiting it. The reason you do it in your singleness is because now you have the tools and you do it a little bit faster and you're no longer projecting onto this poor little soul that's sitting in front of you. You can actually
Yes.
hold yourself. But like the thing about partnership is the vulnerability. Can I vulnerably share with
Mm.
you that I'm scared and that I have
Mhm.
concerns, that I'm not Miss Independent, even though I'd like to joke to
Mhm.
myself that I fucking am. Like, can I tell you that, like, I'm triggered right now? And, like, a really big thing is the self awareness, right? To be able to sit and
Mhm.
go, I know this isn't yours, especially when you've been
Mm.
through trauma. So I have,
Yes.
the trauma bonds, but like also I have the part where it's like every partner I've ever been with has cheated on me up until this
Mm.
man. And he obviously has not. But after my last breakup, that's where I started to do this internal work where it was like, what am I attracting here?
Yes.
But I still have those insecurity in this relationship, right?
Mhm.
And so to
Mhm.
be able to say to him, not in a needy way, not in a broken, it's your thing to fix way of
Mhm.
this is an insecurity I have. And baby, like, I know it's not yours. But is there a way
Yeah.
that we can collaborate on this so there's a little bit more stability within my nervous system as I work through this through therapy? Because I'm not trying to work through this in our relationship. I'm doing that outside of the relationship, but there's certain things within our relationship that are activating me. Can you
Mm.
help like you're a team with your partner. Like that's at the
Mm.
thing, but like there's a way of communicating it from a space of like neediness where they have to fix you and we're kind of stuck in that daddy issue era of like fix me
Mhm.
kind of energy in this like we're a team and let's collaborate on this. And I'm vulnerably opening up to you that I have been carrying and holding my breath and I feel like I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders and I'm kind of fucking tired. So instead of being the
Yes.
quote unquote cool girl who is supposed to be cool with all
Mhm.
the things that you're doing and all the kind of
So
stuff,
easy going.
exactly.
Whatever.
No, like the thing about the feminine is like one, understanding your hormones, you go through more emotions in a day than they do in their entire fucking lifetime. And two, it's like being able to hold that, like, and communicate that effectively and being okay with, having emotions. And this is where understanding the difference between men and
Mm.
women really help, where it's like, you aren't the cool girl. You hormonally aren't the cool girl. Like, you have a lot of fucking emotion pumping through your body. And it's like,
Mhm.
can you have your partner let in on that a little bit so that they can hold it
Mhm.
instead of like, emasculating them, being like, oh, I got this, and then all of a sudden you're bitter and upset and you're saying shit you don't mean.
Yes.
Like it really is this
Yes.
art form that happens.
My favorite metaphor, and I'm trying, I think I can't remember the source of this, so I will put it in the show notes and I remember it. But it's a book. Is it called The Art of Masculinity? It might be. But this metaphor about how the masculine or men um, are the oak tree, right? The roots are their values, what they care about, how they root to themselves and root into this world, this world that we're in. Their trunk is their boundaries and their capacity to protect themselves and to keep themselves healthy. Their branches are their connections, their social networks, their interests, the things that they enjoy. Their flowers and their fruit are their pomp and flair, their sweet Jordans, their cologne, whatever they want to kind of magnetize a little bit. And we are the storm.
Mm.
We have this beautiful way to just have this light breeze and wrap them in some warmth. We can give them nourishment with rain. We can blow as hard as possible trying to knock that tree over. We can move the leaves as they're ready to die off the tree so that new growth can come with our wind, right? Like there's so much that women can do to create and shape that tree, but ultimately it's still an oak tree rooted in the earth. And there's something really powerful about being the storm and being that wild, abandoned, free woman that can storm as she does for growth, right? We typically storm towards growth, and to have that rootedness that we come back to. It's a really beautiful dance between the two. So that's, I think, when we talk about the masculine and the feminine, we want to feel free to be the storm. We
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be the oak tree. That's not who we are.
Exactly. And it's one of those things too. It's like I think we kind of get it twisted as well because then in partnership you're spending so much time complaining and being bitter and
Mm-hmm.
yelling
Mm-hmm.
when like it's not that that doesn't have a place. Like I teach it in my program, Sacred Rage and Emotional Honesty and things like
Yes.
that. But like
I love sacred rage.
your same, like your art is your joy. And like the thing,
Mm-hmm.
especially now with this big like boss babe woo movement
Mm-hmm.
that's happening, is we've lost touch with our joy. And we're trying
Mm-hmm.
to be like these hairless men that are running around and
Mm-hmm.
trying to be strict. And like when we are in partnership, it's just like our amygdalas are just fucking lit up and we're just scanning for red
Mm-hmm.
flags and we're living from our trauma and we're forgetting like the thing I love about my relationship, like I say it all the time, I'm like, it feels like I'm a teenager again. Like if like I've done
Mm-hmm.
so much work that yes, I have triggers. And I hear this with my clients as well, where it's like I can love without the lens of my past getting in the way. And therefore it's like
Mm.
your first love. And the reason your first love is so memorable because there's no shit to compare it to. Like it's this gorgeous
Yes.
thing. It's just like I'm not even worried about like I'm forever. Buy me a promise ring. We're gonna last forever. Like it's all these things that are happening. And then all of a sudden we get to this age and you're like, I've had my heart broken 8,000 times. So therefore I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
scan and make sure that you don't represent anyone from my past. And it's like, that's exhausting for
Mm-hmm.
everyone. So it's like, can you
Mm-hmm.
start to witness things and get into this like space of clarity within your union so you're no longer just nitpicking them and mothering them. Like you can be nurturing, but like mothering is very different and they don't need that. No one needs that except for your
Mm-mm.
kids. Like
Yeah.
like that's it. That's even then it's like there are still think about it when you're like hugging your kid and nurturing them and like feeling like a mother. It's so much different than scolding them because their shoelaces and all their shit's on the floor and like it's just different energies and it's like and you can see how the kids respond to you. Like we're all the same way. And it's like when you can come into your relationship in the space of like joy and delight, watch how
Mm.
your needs get met and how they want to love you and how they want to be this oak tree and how they want to have the branches. Like it's all these different parts that come to play when you tap into your joy and you find your way back home to yourself without the lens of your past getting in the way to interrupt all that.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And so how did you do this? How did you get through first of all, to the degree of which you feel comfortable, what
Yep.
is the past stuff you've had to navigate? And how did you get to this place of accessing joy? I think everybody wants to know, I think a lot of people think I'm too broken or my trauma is too big or my trauma is too small, whatever it is. But like, I won't be like Laura. I'm not going to find that person because A, B, and C, right?
Yep.
So I'd love for you to share your story just so people know you're real
Yeah.
and that like you've been through some shit
Yeah.
and that it is possible because you get to be that role model and that guiding light for those of us that are still in the dark cave.
Yeah. And it's also moving through that victim to survivor complex. It's knowing that, like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like, and something I even had to say, like, when I first started dating my partner, and then I'll tell my story. Like, when I first started dating my partner, it was like I spent the first Christmas with his family, and I don't come from a family like that. Like, my inner child was kicking and screaming, and I was like, I
Mm.
don't know how to sit here. And I laid in bed on Christmas night and I cried, and I was like, I feel like I'm too broken
Mm.
to belong to a family like this. And like it's still there, like, and I want to
Mm.
say that in the human is that it's like I have done the work
Yeah.
and there is a constant revisiting and I have the tools. Like it's this part where it's like I feel this, it's not that this is actually me. Like there's a sensing in my body and that's the somatic work. It's not the actual truth of my being, and I can know and I can identify that. But my story, I mean, starts college, a nasty sexual assault case, and then from there just really detached from my body and got very angry. And then my parents had a nasty divorce, and my mom led to addiction, which she ultimately ended up losing her life when I
Mm.
was 22. And I ended up running to Thailand thinking somehow, I'd find myself. Like I wrote it in my journal and I was like, I really like, I'm scared. I'm scared of myself. I'm scared of my anger. I'm scared of what I'm doing. I have notes in my phone being like, I'm not going to make it to 25 with the way that I'm living. Like I'm so afraid of who I am, but I can't stop. And I didn't have the vocabulary I have now. I didn't have any of this. Like I was just responding to life and reacting to it. And I thought I'd find myself, but really what I did is repeated generational trauma. I got into domestic violence. I got into addictions of my own.
Mhm.
I was hospitalized, brain bleed, broken ribs, like entire body beat and bruised for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was sitting on a balcony. I was 24. I just had a physical altercation with my partner. And yeah, I was contemplating taking my life because I was like, I just can't. Like, I can't. Like, I had no other. I didn't know anything else. I'm in a third world country. I'm disconnected from my family. I'm 45 pounds underweight. I'm chronically ill. I haven't had a period. And at that point, 4 years, it went on for 6 months. Like my body
Mhm.
was just shutting down. And I was like, I
Yeah.
just can't. And for some reason, I got the hit that, it's not that I wanted to die. It's just I couldn't keep living this way. And this has guided me through my entire journey and still does to this day is that one day I'm going to have a daughter. What do I want
Mm.
to tell her about this?
Mm.
And that carried me through and I got myself off that. And I would love to say that was like my wake up healing moment, but I sat down with a friend and because I had such an intense eating disorder at that time, because that's the way that I was coping. It was like, let me just abuse my body and take it out on my body, plus the copious amounts of drugs I was consuming. Don't make you very hungry. And she's like, why don't you go learn about food? And I did. And people saw me getting healthy, but instead of healing my trauma, I just created a new identity. And I see this a lot in
Mm.
entrepreneurship. A lot of women do this.
Yes.
Where it's like, I'm trying to prove that I'm not that person in myself anymore. So, like I said in the beginning of this, I became a perfectionist and I got
Mm.
very
Mm.
orthorexic, which is it's an eating disorder where you're hyper obsessed with health food and health trends and all this stuff. And
Mhm.
it was scary. And my body, no matter how healthy I was eating, was shutting down. And I remember going to my
Mhm.
naturopath and she's like, do you want to talk about how your trauma is related to this? And this is how disconnected I was. I was like, what trauma? Like I
Oof.
didn't get the fact that like girl, you have scars across your whole body, your mother, your family, the
Mhm.
sexual like there is what do you mean what trauma? But like I wasn't open to receiving it. And I know that's a
Mm.
lot of people were like, what do you mean it's not that bad? It's not that bad.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I bypassed that whole thing. And for a year, I kept doing cleanses on cleanses on cleanses and obsessing about it and all this stuff until I was delivering a workshop. It was my 26th birthday, and I was delivering a seminar for like 200 people. And I had 8 months ago gotten this rash on my back. And because it was my entire backside of my body that was super painful, so uncomfortable, I could hide it. So I was like, it's fine, no one
Mhm.
knows. But this thing had crawled up my armpit onto my face. And
Wow.
I couldn't smile. And I was delivering this workshop on health. The gut brain connection was my first business. And I was like, I am supposed to be the walking epitome of health. And like that little bird was on my shoulder, being like, from Penny, who was my naturopath at the time, was like, oh shit, like I need to look at this. Like I need to surrender. I need to gain
Yeah.
weight. I need to stop. Like I just need to stop and pivot and surrender to the fact that my body
Mm.
is trying to tell me, like, just stop. And that's what led me into
Yes.
understanding trauma and going back to, because I'm a very left brain, I have to study anything before I can actually embody it, which now
Yes.
I'm way better at it because now I know. But at the first, like, I'm like, I'm just going to study it. And I'm like, girl,
I'm gonna research everything.
exactly. I'm like, let's go to
Yeah.
school, let's do these things. And I was like, it's not
Yes.
about doing, it's about being. And that took me up
Yes.
until literally my breakup that happened a year ago, where I was like, oh my
Mm.
God, we know so much and we can ace every exam and we can help so many people. But it's like, you need to be this. And this is what led me to somatics and studying this and attachment theory and all that kind of stuff. Because it's
Yes.
like, you need to be it. Like, and this is
Mhm.
it's a journey that's continuing because it's like at every fucking chapter there's something else. But it was this whole
Mhm.
trial and error thing to get to the space that I am now. It's I don't know what it was. Like I really wish. And I was doing a lot of I do brain spotting with my therapist, and we were like
Love brain spotting.
meeting. Me too. It's fabulous. And like narrowing down this inner part of me because I'm meeting my 19-year-old self now that had the sexual
Mhm.
assault. And she's like, but how do we survive? And I literally have no answer because I'm like, I don't know. We just had this
Mm.
fire inside that was just like, there's got to be more. There's got to be more
Mhm.
in something. And like, you know, I learned how to love through watching romantic comedies. And I like had this whole story in my head. And of course,
Me
some of them
too.
were twisted and whatever. But like, I had to retrain my nervous system from watching. And like, I truly believed in that. And I knew that was available to me. So I just kept trying. And through that, finding
Mm.
myself. And I realized the biggest thing, long story long, it was never about fixing me. It was about remembering who I was before any of this shit fucking happened and really
Yes.
embodying that, even though it's quirky and weird and like all the parts of me, like I had this obsession with somehow like maybe I could figure out gene keys and human design and all these different parts and somehow fix the parts of me
Yeah.
that I deemed unlovable. And really, what this whole journey has been is remembering who I was before all of this
Yes.
stuff and coming home.
Mm. Thank you for sharing
Of
that
course.
beautiful long story of resilience. And also, I think just an opening to truth. You know, trauma healing or healing in general from trauma, whatever, is about, I think, a lot of acceptance that our body knows the way. We can't do it alone. And that there is a path that doesn't have to be so hard. You know, you went from one hard to a different hard. And I think it makes sense. You know, our frontal cortex loves to be in control. She's a big fan of having all the answers and solutions to problems before the problems occur. Intellectualization is a common response to trauma because we feel better. For a bit of time, you feel better. You feel powerful. You don't feel powerless. A lot of times, children who have experienced trauma, and when I say children, I mean under the age of 20, right? Like children who have experienced trauma, the most like profound feeling that sticks with them that they're constantly reacting from is powerlessness. Like
Mhm.
there just isn't this capacity to have any sort of empowerment in those moments. And so they search for it wherever they can. And this is why trauma responses happen. This is why eating disorders happen. This is why abusive relationships happen. Right? We look for circumstances subconsciously that will help us have a different conclusion to the same problem. And so if we don't allow as adults ourselves to really step into the space of awareness that all of these things were done for a reason in the past, we can look at them lovingly and say enough, and then find that place of joyful innocence and reclaim what we came onto this earth with, which is this desire for fulfillment and peace and ease and love and joy, because it is there. It didn't go away. Our nervous system just adapted to the world at the time, but it's not that world anymore. We're not in that circumstance anymore. So we have to like update our nervous system to get there. And newsflash, our nervous system doesn't update just with a thought.
Sounds
Wish it
great.
did. That would be so much easier. I have a new thought. I am eternally abundant. Money, trauma gone. Boop, 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 boop.
Let me put it
Right?
on a note and put it on my laptop, and therefore everything should change. Thank you.
My belief system has shifted. All will be right with the world. Um, that would be amazing. Life would be different.
Yeah.
Your nervous system needs evidence. And this is what you've been doing for the last 6 months. This is what I'm hearing you say is you're giving your nervous system evidence that you are safe to surrender and that
Mhm.
you are safe with yourself. You know, the world is always going to create situations that make us feel unsafe. It's always going to happen. We drive a car. It's like the most unsafe thing you could possibly imagine doing ever in your life is drive a car. We do it every day, pretty much. But you give yourself evidence over and over and over again that you're going to make the choice that's best aligned with your true health and healing. You begin to trust yourself again, and then you can reclaim that part of you that you lost long ago. And I
Exactly.
love that your journey has led you to this space and you get this incredible relationship to
Yeah.
really deepen into. That's magic, Laura. That's
Yeah.
magic.
I know. And it's honestly, and I see this with clients, I see this in my work. It's like when you do that work, your relationships are always a mirror, right? And it's not to
Mm.
say my
Mm-hmm.
relationship's perfect. It's not to say like even my best friend, like we activate each other. It's like it's any type of relationship, but it's always mirroring to you the parts of yourself that need a little bit more
Yeah.
tender love and attention. And if you can do that without being triggered, and it's not to say your triggers aren't going to happen, but that makeup period after where you're like, oh shit, that was my like 7-year-old self, that was my 19-year-old self, that was my 22-year-old self, my
Yeah.
bad, my bad. Let me go work on that. Like I take radical ownership over that because that's the thing, right? It's what society calls self-sabotage, science calls
Mm.
self-protection. That's like what you just described. It's like when you can
Correct.
grasp that part, it's like there is nothing wrong. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. You are a
Mm-hmm.
flawed human being, my baby lover. Like that is okay. And
Yeah.
can you accept that it's like there are parts that we
Mm-hmm.
get to mold and play with and like we get to not shame away. And this is a big thing that I've been learning on my journey, and I'm sure you can attest to as well, where it's like the parts that we deem unlovable are actually the part, like I did that where I was like I thought I needed to be perfect, and this is what I was talking about in the last 6 months where I was like I thought I needed to be perfect. I literally just created this new identity that I shut off that
Mm.
22-year-old that got me in that stickle pickle, that 19-year-old that
Yes.
got me in that other problems, that 16-year-old that literally gave all of her
Mm-hmm.
parents PTSD. Like I just shamed and pretended it didn't exist. But the thing is, she's still running the show if you don't give her attention. And it's not
She
to say
sure
she isn't
is.
there. Exactly. And it's not to say that she isn't there. And it's funny because now I have this language where even my clients have
Mm-hmm.
this where it's like, oh, who are we responding from right now? And it's like, my 16-year-old, like and like
Yeah.
you can have language around this, and it's not to say they're gone, it's just identifying that they're there, and then they don't have so much control over you anymore, and
Mm-hmm.
then it comes from, oh, there's my protection. Okay, how can I give you some safety right now? How can I come in with capital S self and really have these conversations so that you're no longer stealing the show or self-sabotaging or causing fights and saying shit that you don't fucking mean, like really stepping into your power of creating safety within your nervous system, because your nervous system, it is plastic. Like yes, you
Mm-hmm.
are, if you don't apply heat you will be this way, but if you apply heat you get to completely revitalize who you know yourself to be, and to step
Mm-hmm.
into your power and to soften and to open yourself up and to create this new legacy. And this is why my biggest mission, it's like around generational trauma. It's not even
Yeah.
about you. It's about your kids and the kids and the kids and like the generations after that. It's like
Yes.
it's the change makers. Like that's where the mission really stems from, is like who who benefits in your life by you leaning into the discomfort of shifting your nervous system, because it's not comfortable, not gonna lie, because you will become aware of a lot of shitty things that you've done in your life. Like it's like
Yes. Yes,
you
you
just
do.
you just have to kind of sit in that. But like it's the big why, and it's like witnessing like,
Mm.
oh, like there's that sneaky little protector manager part of myself again. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
How can I soften the blow of this? How can I give a little bit more love? How can I relax a little bit and open my body? Because again, how you started it, where it's like your body will always tell you, it's,
Mm-hmm.
but oftentimes we're so disconnected from this that we're trying to bypass it with freaking intelligence and being like, well, I
Yes.
know everything I know about trauma, so obviously we're good. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad you can list it off to me, but like, can you
Mm-hmm.
actually feel it in your body and feel okay feeling shame right now?
Mm.
Are you okay holding that weight in your body to actually release it? And like, that's the somatic sides of this
Mm.
stuff that actually starts to mold your nervous system.
What are your favorite somatic modalities to work through these processes?
Honestly, I love dancing. Like, it's
Oh,
one of the things,
me
like,
too.
I just was doing it. I was like, my body couldn't cry today, but it's like feeling like it wants to because I'm hormonal. And I was like, okay, so how are we going to get
Mm-hmm.
this out? And it was like, let me just move and
Yeah.
dance and express in a way, which, like, if you would have told me that a year ago that I would be saying that, I would be like, what? That was not me. It was very like, I'm like therapy and journaling, but like that doesn't help. That's not somatics. If I'm feeling rage, I love a good scream. Like sacred rage is my fucking jam. Like I love
Mm.
it so
Mm-hmm.
much. And it doesn't even have to be for anyone listening, because my best friend is this way where she's like, I'm not gonna fucking scream into a pillow or scream in my car. And I was like, it's like an orgasm. I definitely recommend it, but sure, whatever. You can do it in your third eye as well. Like you can visualize your body doing that if you don't yet feel comfortable actually expressing it. But getting that rage out, like to be comfortable with your rage, You're a
Mm.
you're a woman. You have a rage. You're a volcano. Like the problem is we keep erupting and hurting people. But if you can actually make peace with this rage inside of you, it's really beautiful. I love working out as well. Like if I need to stretch my nervous system, like hot yoga, just
Mhm.
like instead of hitting the thing about trauma that I see a lot of people doing is we talk about trauma too much. We're very stuck in origin
Mm.
story without actually getting
Yes.
a regulated nervous system to hold it. So I was seeing this when I was in 12 steps and I would leave being even
Yeah.
more triggered. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
Oh,
Or I'd be
yes.
in therapy and I'm like, I'm even more
Mhm.
triggered. And the problem was my body was just circulating these hormones around because I didn't
Mhm.
yet stretch my nervous system to hold it. And you can do this through hot yoga, like because you're holding hard poses and showing your
Yes.
nervous system you can hold hard things. This is why cold plunges are very popular. This is why meditation is so popular because you're sitting in discomfort and showing your body you
Mhm.
can hold discomfort. So doing these things before even touching the trauma and the origin story and things like that, I think are
Yes.
really foundational. And that's where the somatics comes in, right? Or like focusing or brain spotting, like I said. Like I practice focusing with my clients, and that means we're aware of this felt sense in our body because a lot of us,
Yes.
and this is what I mean when you're saying like, and you probably see this with your clients where they're like, I'm just feeling something, and they're like pointing to their chest, but they can't
Mhm.
describe it, and the only way they can describe it is through a metaphor. That's your felt sense.
Yes.
And when you can hold that felt
Yes.
sense in your body, that even though it's uncomfortable, it's the sense in your body, and you kind of let it pass through, and you realize your body can hold it, and really identifying these things. So it's just a few, but those are things that I use almost
Mm.
daily.
No, I love it, and they're so tangible. Like, I think people, when they think somatic, if you know what the word somatic means, but, like, when they think of processing trauma, they do think of this clinical
Yeah.
space. And sure, EMDR is amazing, somatic experience is amazing, brain spotting is amazing. Those are all things you do with a therapist. Like, yes, yes, yes. All those things are great. And they do stretch your nervous system to a degree. But first comes the relationship. First comes the relationship with your body and getting comfortable with the relationship with your body. Breath work for me is, I think, top of the list. Also sits in discomfort, and you can kind of go from like, this is nice and peaceful to like, oh my goodness, I'm having like a, you know, oh gosh, what's the word? Transcendental experience. Yeah,
Oh my god.
transcendental
Yeah.
experience. Like,
Yeah.
you can go from these levels,
Yeah.
but it's remembering that our body is wise. It's returning to the mechanisms that are already built within us. One of my favorite things I ever learned in all of my trauma training was, do you know who Peter Levine is?
Yeah. I actually just
The
studied with him
founder.
inside of my program. Yeah.
Yes. So Peter Levine, amazing. And he's kind of the founder, if you will, of somatic trauma work. And in his research, in his early research, he was really looking at why human beings in particular have more PTSD than actual animals, right? And other mammals. And it is because we stop the process that's natural in our nervous system from happening. And it's our frontal cortex, right? Like we don't necessarily choose to stop it. We stop it. And we get to relearn how to naturally do this using what is available to us, what is free, what is provided by the earth. Like this doesn't have to be, uh, I'm going to go to a trauma healing retreat for 6 months and then I'll come back. I see that too. Like people will spend tens of thousands of dollars to heal their trauma, but not actually sit with their body.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like you just have
Exactly.
to start with like breathing, please. And
Exactly.
And so I love, this tangibility of it, I think is important for people to hear. It is easier than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't believe us, I want you to stop right now and I want you to just notice how you're actually breathing. Like just for a hot second, I want you to actually notice, are you taking a breath in? Are you breathing it all the way out? Or are you breathing like this? Like how how are you doing right now? And even just the moment of tapping into that, I think you'll realize how disconnected we can be from our body so quickly.
I love
It
that. And
happened. It
it
happens instantly.
literally, and that's it. It's constantly like people are like, oh, "What's your morning routine? What are the things?" Da 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 da. I'm like,
Hmm.
literally a body scan first thing in the morning. What do you need?
Yep.
What are you feeling? What's the one thing you
Mhm.
need because of what you feel in your body? It's not this
Mhm.
like extraordinary thing. It's just you start to treat yourself like someone you love and care about, as
Mhm.
opposed to someone you're trying to fix and bypass with all this stuff,
Mm.
this pop psychology that we see on the internet nowadays. We're like trying to diagnose and put ourselves in a box so somehow we can feel like we belong. And it's like, all you gotta do is breathe. Like me and one
Mhm.
of my friends, Steph, make a joke. It's like literally, think I feel healed my trauma by staring at trees because it's just like this, like grounding. I feel my feet on the floor and like, oh, I'm so present. Like I'm just in like awe of these like beautiful trees that I'm surrounded by. Like it's not this, and like I make this joke too, where it's like the way I got through my breakup so quickly, not quickly, but like a duality of like falling in love and healing my heart, and like the way it happened,
Mhm.
it was just wild. Um, but the way I did it was because I broke all my rules and I would go clubbing again, but not like getting drunk and like doing all my things of my old self. I would just be dancing on the dance floor, which like you don't get a lot
Yes.
here in Texas. So it was like I would find one place and I would just like let my body rip like it used to at festivals. And I like now I know
Ooh.
what I was doing, but I can think back to my time when I was like going through and healing through domestic violence. And I got really into festivals, and that's the part where
Mhm.
felt like I came alive. And I was like, oh, it's because you were moving your body, like you were getting these things
Yes.
out, and you were just like being a wild thing and like moving. And like at the time, I wouldn't
Mhm.
have had the language around that. But if you can look at it, it's like it doesn't have to be anything like extraordinary and like sitting down and like I get hit with those ads for like breath work where like people are like screaming in the floor, and I'm like, I mean, that seems
Yes.
very
It's
sexy
great.
to me. Like, I'm like, I love that shit. But if you hit me even a year ago with that, I'd be like, no, like, I'm good. My trauma in me, I'm good. But like, it's the edge. Like, what's your edge? Is it dancing?
Yes.
Is it learning to even like when you feel anxiety and you have fight freeze? Like that's what you're like.
Mhm.
Levine talks about that. It's like we don't shake it off. Like we just store it in our body.
We
Where
don't.
animals, they shake it off.
Correct.
A really good
They
book is
do.
what is it? Waking the Tiger Within. That's one of his
Mhm.
books. It's like it's where can you shake it off? So like sometimes even when I'm feeling
Yes.
anxious, like I even label it in Strava. I'm like, this is my anxiety run, because it's like sometimes I'm like, I just need to go like run. I need it out of my body now. Like
Yes.
like it sounds ridiculous, but it's like it doesn't have to be this prescription. You're sitting down in a white office and they're like, how does that make you feel? It's like, I want to punch something. Okay, go punch something. Go punch a fucking pillow. Like
Yes.
no one cares. Like look, if you live alone, go do it. If you're in your room, like tell your husband, wife, whatever, being like, just give me a minute. Like I'm gonna go in the room right now and I'm gonna punch a pillow. I'm gonna yell. Like it gets to be whatever you make it, and just kind of playing in that realm of release, baby. Just like release
Mm.
it in some type of way.
I love watching my children do this and learning from them.
Oh yeah. When I was a teacher,
Like
this was the
they're
most fascinating thing. It's like,
oh, they go right for it, like there's no filter. I've got a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. My 8-year-old is starting to filter herself a little bit, just because she becomes more aware of other people. But there's this, like, I think what happened the other day, one of her pictures got wet that she worked really hard on. And my son put like a wet glass next to it and it like bled into the picture. And she hit the floor screaming and crying. And I was like, that's valid. That feels, I understand. You get it out, girl. Scream and cry. That's really shitty that that happened to you.
yes.
And then she's done. And she's like, well, okay, I guess I can, do another one, or I can change it this way, or I can, then she can engage her frontal cortex and be like, okay, there's a solution to this. This isn't an actual threat to my survival. But for a minute, it feels like that. And they let their bodies express it fully. And so they're not these little stored beacons of trauma if they're in a safe space to process it. Let's just say that out loud.
Yes.
But this capacity to see this new generation, who I think is being raised with healthier adults,
Mhm.
um, it's really cool to see them self express with no shame and how quickly they move through experiences that I would have held in my body for a lifetime.
Mm-hmm. That's like my biggest fascination was like kids, because I worked in
Mm-hmm.
like pre-K and kindergarten when I was in Thailand, and just like how heart open they are, and how they'll feel
Mm,
something and they'll be mad and they'll throw themselves on the ground and they'll cry. And I mean, Asian culture is a little different. They have less. extremes than American kids. It's
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah.
But it's funny that they feel it, and then, a minute later, they forget. They're
Mm-hmm.
playing, they're out, they're doing
Mm-hmm.
things. And I would always just watch them, or I would like watch my niece, and she's just like, moving her body and the exploring and learning like
Mm-hmm.
her body and how she wants to express it. And it's just like, ah, what a gift these little chicken nuggets are, you know?
Yes. Yes. No, I completely agree. I completely agree. It's beautiful to witness. And I think, like you said, this is why you're doing what you're doing. You're creating generational change and healing legacies, really. And so I love it. I love what you're doing. I love the work that you've done. And to meet another leader who has actually done the work is really important. I'm not saying that all leaders haven't. I'm just saying, like you said, they've taken on another identity of the leader, of the CEO, but when it comes to the body-based work, they haven't done it. And so unfortunately, they're kind of stuck at that spot, and they bring people to that stuck point, and then we're all stuck, right? So you are somebody who is leading the way through that stuckness. And I really, really appreciate you being out in the world with me
Thank you.
in this message. Laura, tell us what is going on in your world. How can people find you? What are you offering? Tell us all the things.
All things. Like, I'm not going to list it off because it'll be overwhelming, but just come hang out. I feel like there's a new thing like every week.
Right.
So come hang out over on Instagram. My personal one is it's Laura Patricia Martin. So ITS Laura Patricia Martin. And then our podcast is Healing to Happy. And that's another Instagram page. But yeah, you will hear me talking about something with some cool marketing, like Coco said earlier.
Yes.
All of this.
Yes.
So yeah, just come hang out. You'll probably get a message from my team, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And I cannot wait to see what you are bringing into the world. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.